Hello, and welcome back to another installment of Leadership Live, where I host candid discussions with industry leaders on the intersection of business and technology. I'm Christine Middleton from Zoho for Enterprise, and joining me today is Krish Himmatramka. Krish is the founder and CEO of Do Amore, a trailblazing jewelry company in which he has seamlessly woven together the threads of business, philanthropy, and environmental stewardship. Since its inception, Do Amore has achieved remarkable success, generating 40 million in sales without any outside capital beyond Krish's initial 18,000 investment. More impressively, the company has provided life-changing access to clean water for over 21,000 individuals across 11 countries, a testament to the tangible impact of Krish's vision. Let's welcome him now.
Hey, Christine. Yeah,
Hi,
great to
Krish.
be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
All right. And I would love if you could share a little bit about your experience with the topic of vendor and manufacturer relationships with business.
Yeah, for sure. So when I started Do Amore, initially it was very hard to find manufacturers and vendors and partners that wanted to work with some 25-year-old that had never done anything in the industry before. And on top of that, I was asking all these questions about ethics and sustainability, and it was very hard initially to find people that wanted to work with us. And then once I found one, I found another, and then I used that introduction to find another. And slowly, but surely, we were able to create a great partnership with 10, 12 people. And then what started to happen very quickly is I realized that there's this phrase that we probably have all heard, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with.
Mhm.
And I realized that was starting to apply to us in the business world too. Like our company, Do Amore, it was becoming the average of our 5 closest partners and manufacturers, and it was happening right before my eyes. I could see that. And the reason this topic is so key to me is when we started working with manufacturers that would always say no, like, can we customize this, can we do this, and they would say no. Obviously we were telling our customers no,
Mhm.
and we were really becoming the average of our 5 closest partners. And so about 2.5 years ago, we decided, you know what, like, we need to drop the partners and manufacturers that we don't want to be like, because we are becoming an average of them. So we've worked very closely with a few partners and manufacturers and made sure that the ones that we decided to work with on an everyday basis were the ones that represented who we wanted to be as a company to our own customers. So that was very important to us. It's a topic that's very close to me for sure.
Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the questions. So, following up on that, what impact do vendors have on the development and of sustainable business practices?
Yeah, I would say, while we are, leading the recommendations and the suggestions and, the demands of what we need, without a doubt, it's up to them to carry out so much of it. Um, so it's very, very key. I think that, the same vendors that, 7, 8 years ago that were saying, no to working with us on recycled gold or, recycled metals, or, you know, giving us sourcing for diamonds, they were also the last ones to make the transition to lab created diamonds and other things in the industry that are not just sustainable but actually great for business too. So without a doubt, like, the ones that are slow to change um, are also the ones that have been slow to adapt to sustainable practices, because I mean that's who the Gen Z consumer is now, and that's our target base now, is Gen Z. And so it without a doubt, they have a huge role in it, and it impacts them, and it also impacts us as well.
Absolutely. All right, second question. What role do vendors play in improving the overall customer experience for businesses?
You know, um, I think that while they don't have a direct role in the consumer, indirectly they have a massive effect, because from our business standpoint, when we have a special request or we have a special sourcing request or something, and we go to our vendors, if they're not willing to put in the work to find out if they can make the special request and bring it to life, then we're limited as well. We're limited as well, and we have to go back to the customer and, decline the request or tell them, unfortunately, we can't do it exactly like you want. We can do it like this instead. And so, even though they're directly not talking to the consumer, indirectly they're having a very significant impact. So, and it's not just like vendors. Like I might be talking about like manufacturers, but even other vendors, like for email marketing or something. Like if we really want to make our emails more like our brand, or bring our brand voice into our emails, and for some reason our you know email provider cannot support that, like it's the same thing. And like, so it goes into software, it goes into manufacturing, it goes into almost everything. And I will say directly they do not, but indirectly they have a massive impact.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like it's really fundamental for you to pick and choose the right kind of vendors because overall, at the end of the day, that's gonna be the kind of output that you're gonna be giving out to your customers fundamentally. So I feel like, the vendors and manufacturers that you partner with correlates to the kind of business output that you put out ultimately as well,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And what you just said reminds me of like, we're very particular about where our diamonds come from. We want to know the origin. We want to know everything about them. We use blockchain to check many things. We know who cut the diamond, who polished it. We know the whole story of the stone. And the same suppliers that the same suppliers that like had that from day one, that were doing this from day one, it's a totally different relationship with them compared to the suppliers that like added this because we asked them to. The ones that like, they were like, okay, we'll do this because you guys want us to do it. Um, for them, it's more of a chore. Versus the ones where it's like natural, and like the
Mhm.
ones that were like at the forefront, excited to do this initially, like they're the ones that we have really close relationships with, because it just shows. It shows in like everything. And yeah, so I think like it's one thing about, who the vendor is and who the manufacturer is, and what's actually happening because you're asking them to do it, but then also like what's natural to them. And the ones where it's natural, it ends up being a much closer relationship and a much more successful business relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. And so final question for today is how do vendors contribute to the quality and consistency of a business product's offering?
Yeah, I think it's very significant. It reminds me of like, Six Sigma and all of that, but it's very significant. What we've noticed is the vendors where we do have some sort of consistency problems with, while we will always make sure it's all fixed up before anything gets to the consumer, um, it causes a lot of delays, and it causes a lot of, stress for no reason. Because on one hand, like we may get an engagement ring to quality control check it here to our office, and then we have to send it back to them, and then they send it back to us, and again something's wrong. So it adds a lot. It adds a lot versus the ones where, we've given them a Six Sigma process to follow, and they actually follow it. We rarely ever have to correct anything. So it's made a massive difference. And yeah, I mean, I can't, for my business, I can't say strongly enough, like that statement about you are the average of your five people you spend your most time with, like it has applied to our business so significantly. And as soon as we realized that and we started working with people in that sense, it made a massive change to our business, both financially, sustainability wise, and then also just like the consumer has been so much happier with us ever since we've worked with people that represent who we want to be.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I think many a times when we look at businesses, we don't really think about how important and vital the vendor relationships and the vendor partnerships and even manufacturers, how all of that ties into it. We just see the business as a whole, and then we don't really think about what goes on in the back end. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah.
We were on Shark Tank about a year and a half ago, and right before Shark Tank, there was this big rush of like, hey, there's going to be 4 million people watching this episode. Are we going to have too many orders? Are we going to be able to keep up? Should we add another manufacturer to? And we decided not to, and I think it was a really good decision because while it may have cost us in the short term, I know like in the long term it would have created more. It would have created it would have created a business that was not going to uh, match what our customers deserved. And so that's like for sure a really key decision that was tough at the time to do, but it was the right decision without a doubt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. I'm sure our viewers learned a lot. So we'll be
Yeah.
taking questions now. So we have the comment section open. So for anybody who's viewing and has any questions, please feel free to drop it over here. We do have a question from Dean Swartz. I'll put that up on the screen. And he says, how did you come up with the concept idea for the ICP and value proposition for Do Amore, and then get your suppliers to buy into the story?
Yeah. So it was pretty easy, honestly, because the reason I created Do Amore was I was looking for an engagement ring for my then girlfriend, now wife, and um, it just started to bother me because when I would go, I went to over like 12 stores, and every time I would go to a store and ask anything about ethics, um, like after the first two stores had the exact same scripted answer, and then the third store had it, then the fourth store had it, and eventually, like all 12 stores had the same scripted answer, which was a Kimberley process statement that the United Nations requires. And so once I heard that same story from everyone, I was like, you know what, like I don't really know how comfortable I am with this because something's not right. And I just decided I wanted to propose with the ring that didn't just not hurt the world, but actually helped the world. So I was the ideal customer at the time. I was the customer itself. And I actually created Do Amore for myself in a way, um, to create a ring that was, impacting people's lives positively on my own special day rather than hurting someone's life. So I was the ideal customer, so it worked. In terms of getting suppliers to buy into the story, that was definitely very tough. I had no background in the industry. I had no family in the industry. It was just me at then, a 25-year-old trying to do this. And so that was really tough. And I think what really worked is eventually I found one supplier that understood what I was trying to do, believed in it. And once I had that one supplier, and started working with them, I was able to use that supplier as a reference. And then those other suppliers that seemed great but wouldn't work with me because, I was too small or I didn't have any references. I now had a reference, and then I had two references, and then I had three references. So eventually, I was able to build up references and make it work. So, yeah, it's one of those things like when you're trying to raise money or anything, they always say, you have to just get through the nose, and eventually you'll get one yes. That's kind of what it was. And once we got our one yes, we were able to make it two yeses and three yeses and so on.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, we'll have it open for a little longer. So if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to drop it right here. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Yeah. And I had seen one question on the LinkedIn post.
Mhm.
So I'll address that too. I think there was a question about like lab created diamonds,
Mm.
um, like how lab created diamonds are doing versus natural diamonds. And just to answer that, yeah, lab created diamonds are wonderful. They we started offering them a long time ago. But at that time, lab created diamonds were only like 20% cheaper than natural diamonds. So they weren't selling that well. But now lab created diamonds are almost 70% cheaper than natural diamonds or even more. And yeah, I think they're wonderful. I think lab created diamonds and natural diamonds have their own place. Lab created diamonds are great for somebody who wants a beautiful ring that they know is sustainable and ethical. And on top of that, it just takes people's budget so much further. So what we've learned is people aren't really saving money by buying a lab grown diamond these days. What they're doing is they're just buying a larger diamond or a
Mm.
higher quality diamond with their same budget that they would have had before. That's what we've kind of seen. Now, if you're a consumer that is saying, oh, you know what, I really want this to hold value and in 20 years we're going to sell it and upgrade, like we don't know what's going to happen with lab created diamonds. Are the value going to go up? Is it going to go down? We don't really know. With natural diamonds, we have decades of history showing that diamonds tend to go up, a small percentage every year. But what I think is probably the best thing to do is if you want to buy a lab diamond, save some money, and then even if you invest that savings in like anything, it'll probably perform better than a natural diamond would. So I don't see diamonds as the best investment personally, and for that reason, I think both are great options, but I think there's a lot of value right now for lab created diamonds. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that makes me feel really good about the lab created diamonds that I have on my engagement
Yeah.
ring. So,
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was a pleasure being here, and I appreciate you all so much.
absolutely. We do have one more question from Dean who says, where are you targeting your lead and demand gen, and how does it integrate with Zoho? Well, you're not, well,
Yeah. So we're not integrated with Zoho as of yet. In terms of our lead demand and gen, um, for us, it's all about storytelling. We have to tell our story. If someone's just looking for like that's why like Google Ads doesn't work well for us because it's hard for us to tell our story. But YouTube works well because we can tell our story on YouTube. We can tell our story on Meta, on Instagram, Facebook. So for us, storytelling is very key. It's very important for us. Um, I think like where Zoho could play a role for us in the future is as we're so dedicated to having the best customer service in the industry, and I think with like Zoho with the tools that you all have in terms of um, the tools you all have in terms of like customer bookings and things like that, just for having like a very good CRM platform where all our customer information is organized and across like multiple people emailing us. The girlfriend might be emailing us and the boyfriend's emailing us, like keeping all of that collaborative, having a customer profile. I think that's where Zoho could play a pretty big role for us and other engagement companies. Yeah.
all right, perfect. That sounds great.
Awesome.
Um, all right, so we have come to the end of our live stream, and if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to drop it in the comments even after. We'll be more than happy to go and answer them for you. And with that, we have come to an end of the session. So thank you so much, Krish, for joining us once again. Thank you for all the viewers who have joined us, and stay tuned for the next one coming up soon. All
Thanks
right,
so much. Thanks so much. And thanks to Zoho for having me. Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you. All
Thanks.
right.